This is the EVP Podcast.
You're listening to the EVP Podcast. I'm Beaker.
I'm Ghosty.
And I'm DVO.
And that's the end of the show. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next time.
See you next week. So, what did we talk about last week?
A place in Virginia City.
Oh,
where
yeah.
they washed hose. Or the Washoe Club.
They washed the hose.
Washoe. And our good friend Paul did say, you guys, anytime you guys, the three amigos, want to come, I got you. We appreciate it.
You know,
I'm so down.
I have some
so
time off
down.
in October. We should see if we can go.
Okay, let's do this. October?
Yeah, October 5th through the 10th I'm off. So 6 days.
Is that fall during a Saturday, Sunday?
That's
I'm not looking at a calendar.
I'm always off on Saturday. So
Okay.
So
All
it's
right.
actually a Wednesday through a Monday.
Let's do this.
So let's hit up Paul. Paul, you're listening. I know you are because you love us. We're going to see if we can come out that weekend. Hit us up.
That's
Let us know.
awesome.
We'll also text you because they're recording this 2 days before it comes out. So, yeah. So, yeah, a lot of people really love Virginia City. We've had a lot of people comment and said, they love going to that place.
A lot of experiences there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shared a story of someone that one of our listeners told us some of the experience they had. We just posted on our social media. With their interaction they had with shadow people, I guess you could say. It was pretty. And their daughter's hair being grabbed. So
they sent us a bunch of photos too.
Oh, I didn't catch the photos.
It went to our Instagram and it went to our request folder, and I looked at them, and I thought I saved them into our main inbox in Instagram, and I did not. So I don't know where they went.
Okay,
but
we'll ask for them.
They were some pretty good pictures.
Ah.
So we need to hit them up again.
Okay.
See if we can get those pictures again, because somehow I accidentally deleted them because I don't know Instagram. But yeah, so as you might have noticed on my weeks when I pick a topic, I like to do unsolved mysteries.
I like it.
So this week I picked America's oldest unsolved mystery.
I didn't know that until I was researching it. It's America's oldest.
I did not know that either. It's America's oldest. We're talking about the lost colony of Roanoke.
I did know this.
Not the Lost Boys of Neverland.
No.
Because that's where I'll be.
Yes.
I'm a Peter Pan fanatic.
Yeah,
Okay.
you are.
That's something about a guy in green tights. I just like it. Like Robin Hood.
I'm wearing green tights next week.
You should.
It is Halloween time. I'm sure I could find some.
You're going to be poison ivy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to fly too. I just think of happy thoughts. Actually, I'll end up like Toodles and Hook and just crawling on the floor going, lost.
Lost your marbles.
I've lost my marbles. So Roanoke. So speaking of losing things, we lost Roanoke.
Yeah, about 117 people we lost.
Yeah, all of them just gone.
115?
100. Well, the number changes depending on
Yeah,
what website you're looking at.
Yeah.
Like, who are we counting? The people that left, people that stayed? Like, who are we counting here? But
My favorite was the website that said it was between 112 and 120. So we'll go with that.
That's a good number.
Between 100 to 500. Between 5 and 500.
117, 118, 115. It just depends on who you're talking to. So I like the website that said between 112 and 120.
I like it.
That's
Safe.
very safe. So what happened?
Still a lot of people.
A lot of people just gone. So Roanoke actually started before these people got there. So they got there in 1587.
Uh-huh.
Okay, is when this colony, the disappeared colony, got there. Roanoke was actually had a colony set up before then by order of Queen Elizabeth. She gave the order to, I believe his name was Walter Raleigh.
Yes, he
And
funded it.
He
was
funded
the one
it.
that funded everything.
She gave him the charter to go ahead and colonize the New World, the Americas. And so he actually sent, I believe, 2 scouting expeditions beforehand. One of them was something like 400 men.
Around 500.
500 men?
500.
Between 4 to 500.
Yeah, between 4 to 500.
Somewhere in the millions.
Yeah, that sounds about spot on, yes.
They actually came across, and they actually set up a colony on Roanoke Island. If you don't know where Roanoke Island is, it's just off the coast of North Carolina, a little bit south of the border to Virginia.
There's a few islands out there, too.
Yes.
The Outer Islands.
The Outer Islands. So they actually had set up a colony on Roanoke, and they begun to kind of make relations with the locals, and they engaged in like trade and stuff like that, and they were learning the ways of the land. And the governor of the first colony kind of pissed off the natives. I believe it started with a silver cup going missing, and so they blamed the natives for stealing their cup, and they wanted it back. And then just stuff went downhill from there. I'm giving a very brief recap of what happened beforehand, but stuff started happening. The natives and the colonists at the time kind of started going to war, fighting each other, and it got to the point to where they even kidnapped, like the colonists kidnapped the son of the chief of the tribe that they were warring with.
Tiger Lily, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Maybe I lose my train of thought.
Captain Hook.
Captain Hook was pissed that Tiger Lily was kidnapped by the colonists, and so they actually destroyed all their fish traps. That's not really their names. I'm sure you figured this out. But they did actually, they started destroying their fish traps and stuff that they had taught them how to do so they could survive on their own. They started messing with them, and I believe there was a little bit of a war, and there ended up being a storm that came in. I believe the colonists they planned on leaving. There was a storm that came in, and they ended up evacuating the colony, and they took 2 of the natives from the Croatoan tribe with them. Their names were Monteo and Toway, and they actually went back to England, just because of all the warring and stuff that was going on with the other tribe there in the area. There was another ship with some reinforcements that came. When they found out that the colonists had went back to England, they left, I believe it was, 13 guys there on the island, and there at the colony, and those dudes ended up just disappearing. No one knows what happened to those guys either. But so basically, long story short, there was already a settlement there in Roanoke. So in I keep saying 18, that's not right.
15.
87. Yes, 1587. Yes. They decided to send a third expedition out, this time with a guy named John White. And John White had actually already been to the Americas once before. Raleigh sent him out as the governor of this new colony, and they came with 118 people. 2 of those were his daughter, Elizabeth White Dare, and her husband, Anasiah Dare. And they came, they found that settlement, and they built, there were still some houses there, but they rebuilt the colony, basically. And it was shortly after they got there, very important, apparently, thing in history happened. The first European was born in the Americas. Her name was Virginia Dare. And people worship her now. I've seen statues that they go. No, they don't worship her. But they don't really worship her. But they have built statues there on Roanoke.
Yeah, there's a statue, and then there's been a bunch of different brands named after her.
Oh, there's so much stuff named after her.
Do you know what John White was? Why he kind of got into the position he got into?
No.
As the governor?
Yeah. So he was an artist and a map maker.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why all those pictures and everything that we saw, they were all drawn by him.
Yeah, he was.
And so when he went there before, that's what his job was creating the maps. And then
he was documenting where they were at and things like that.
Yeah. So then him going back so many times, or not so many times, but he knows his shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, governor.
I mean, he was a very talented artist too. There's pictures that you can see of drawings that he's done.
I saw the maps. Yeah.
Well, there's the maps, but then there's also the drawings he did of the Croatoans.
Yeah, those guys are ripped.
The natives that they kind of worked with. So he kind of already had a good. I can't think of words right now. He got along well with the Croatoans. Basically, they were allies, more or less. So originally they weren't going to Roanoke. I think they were going to Croatoan Island. And the captain of the ship was like, no, you need to go to Roanoke. So that they ended up settling there on Roanoke. Shortly after the birth of his granddaughter, they decided that they needed more supplies. And they were originally going to send 2 other people, and they ended up not wanting to abandon their families. So the colonists urged John White to go himself. So John White went back to England to get supplies to bring back to the colony. And he only planned on being gone for like 2 months. Unfortunately, when he got home, the Queen of England, Elizabeth, had declared war on Spain because the Spanish Armada was kind of moving in. And I mean, they already had like down in the North Carolina and some of these islands, they actually had people stationed there to like intercept Spanish ships. Because there was this whole war going on with Spain. So Queen Elizabeth said, we need every ship we have in case the Spanish come in. So he was docked. He couldn't go back to the colony. And he was able to pull some strings apparently somehow because he was friends with Raleigh and was able to get the okay. He was supposed to originally come back with 8 ships with more colonists and supplies and stuff like that. He was approved for 2 ships to go back. So he tries to go back to the colony. I believe he gets intercepted by the Spanish on the way. There's some damage done to the ship. So they have to turn around and go back to England to fix the ships and resupply. So after all of this is said and done, he finally makes it back to Roanoke 3 years later.
I was going to say, wasn't it 3 years?
3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
Speaking of Queen Elizabeth, I don't know if you guys just heard, at the time of this recording, she just passed away yesterday.
Yep.
The second.
The third.
Queen Elizabeth the third?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
The
just
third.
Yeah, not the one in this story.
No. Yeah.
She's kind of been gone for a while.
Yeah. It would be amazing if she was still around 400 years later.
Yeah. No, yeah, Queen Elizabeth III, 96 years old.
Yep.
So I don't know about the other queens before her, but they've got some longevity in those genes.
They do. I think it was
Inbreeding is
Prince,
what it is.
Prince Charles is like, finally.
I think the second longest reign of England was, I believe, one of the other Queen Elizabeth was like 70 something years.
Wow.
And then the next one was like 50 years. So yeah, she beat them up a little bit.
She beat them up? Okay.
She beat them up. It's like my record. So yeah.
So John White gets back.
3 years.
3
he gets
years
back.
gone by.
3 years. He finally gets back with supplies.
He left, and Virginia's granddaughter was an infant. Now she'll be 3 years old.
Yes.
Or supposedly supposed to be.
So they get there, and then as they get onto the island, they're going to the settlement, and they find a tree that has 3 letters carved into it. C-R-O.
With a heart around it.
With a heart around
No,
it.
I'm just kidding.
And an arrow through it. They're like, we love Crow. They don't know what this means. They're like, okay, this is weird. So him and his people, they get to the settlement. They see something new that wasn't there when he left. There was a palisade. A wall.
Around it,
Around it. And
Which
he's
I
like,
heard is still there.
No, I don't think so.
That's what I heard.
It could be. I don't know. Nothing that I saw suggested that it was there because they don't know where the actual.
Well, that's true. Maybe
They don't know where the actual settlement
they
was.
phrased it funny in the thing I was watching. That's
Because on the In Search of with Zachary Quinto in 2019.
Spock.
Yes. The Spock. Apparently both Spocks did the
Leonard
show In
Nimoy.
Search of, and they both did an episode of Roanoke. So in the Zachary Quinto one, they actually had people thinking that the colony, like the water line has come up on the land, so they think the colony might have been in the water. They actually had people out in the ocean, more or less,
Sifting and
doing digs, and they were actually finding like pieces of Native American pottery in the water. So, yeah. So the Palisades there, but nobody's there. The houses are all taken down. Like the houses are gone.
Yeah, well, they said a lot of things I read was that the houses were dismantled.
Apparently, they were built to where if they needed to relocate quickly, they were easy to take down.
Okay.
So they were sturdy enough to live in, but they were easy enough to take down and transport.
Got it. Okay.
So all the houses are gone. All the people are gone. There's no signs of anything other than on one of the gateposts, the word Croatoan carved into the gatepost. So John, one of the things he told the people before he left, if you need to leave, he's like
it is an emergency.
well, yeah, if you need to leave for any reason, write down where you went. Leave a note of where you went, basically. And an emergency to put a cross over it.
Yeah.
There was no cross, so it doesn't make him think that there was an emergency that caused them to leave.
Which would be a lot easier than writing the letter CRO. Putting a cross would be much easier and faster in an emergency.
Yeah.
That'll take some time to do a CRO.
But they wrote on the gatepost. They actually wrote out Croatoan.
There's a lot of curves, right? A lot of curves with a knife to carve.
Yeah, chisel.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Like,
that's
we
it.
gotta go. Hold on, I'm doing the O. Just give me a minute. It's hard. With a sharp edge to do a circle.
Yes.
Woodworking.
Yeah. How would that work? Like, oh, it's an emergency. We need to
It's gonna
leave.
be-
Let's write Croatoan
Yeah.
and then
exactly.
a cross. Cross signifies it's emergency, but there's no cross, so it didn't lead him to believe that there was an emergency that caused him to leave.
I mean, that would just make sense to go to the Croatoan Island, right?
Yeah, which was so he also told them like if they need to relocate to go to 50 miles into the main, and no one knows what the hell that means.
Mainland?
See, that's what they think, but they don't know
Yeah,
for sure.
That comes to my mind, right? Which would be just west of the islands.
So his thought was, well, they wrote Croatoan, so he's going to go down to what was then called Croatoan Island, which is about 50 miles south of Roanoke. It is now called the Hatteras Island, and it's where John thought they went because they wrote Croatoan. To get from Roanoke to Croatoan, you're going right through Hurricane Alley. And he was doing this during hurricane season. He was trying to get down to Croatoan
Good.
so he can see if his people are there with the Croatoans. Hurricane hit, did damage to the ship, and they lost their anchor. So they decided to, the captain was like, we're not doing this, and they went back to England. And I think it was like 10 years later before anyone went looking for the Croatoans, or for the colonies, the colonists. And no one ever found any sign of them. They did have, one of the Europeans did talk to one of the leaders of one of the tribes there, and that dude took credit saying he slaughtered the entire colony. We don't know for sure. There's
Right.
no evidence of that.
Yeah, so 112 to 120 people
Just
are
vanished.
just gone. And you'd think, I don't know, like the natives about their record keeping or story keeping. I don't know what they do, but you would think they would have some type of storytelling about what would happen.
Well, that's the thing is like, so from what I understand with natives, that's just how they kept records, is just storytelling.
Right. So you think,
And-
so there's like 100 people,
And,
white
like,
people.
Drawings on the walls.
Yeah, there's like 100 white people. And, we just do whatever they might have done. If they did anything at all.
So that
You think
story,
they'd tell those stories that'd be passed on?
that story is kind of was passed on because there were some of the Croatoans that said their ancestors were white.
Uh-huh.
So there is several theories as to what happened to this colony, and keep in mind, like, this was supposed to be the first colony. This was the first colony in the Americas.
In the Americas.
What's credited for the first colony in America is Jamestown, which didn't happen until 17 years later, after they went missing.
What ship were they on?
The one that took them there.
James Smith. John Smith.
John Smith?
Yeah, whichever one's that was. Yeah.
But see, they had a hard time getting Jamestown's going too. Like, the only reason why Jamestown survived, they believe, was because of constant supplies and colonists coming in. Where this was just 118 people and no supplies, nothing. So there are several theories, and Ghosty has those for us.
They were because they weren't as savage as the Vikings. Vikings pulled up, burned their boats, said, we're taking over now.
Yeah.
And they were just ruthless. And that's why the Vikings did pretty good. These were pretty ruthless.
And now
The
they're-
Europeans were like, okay, we're going to be nice to everybody and bring a little bit of disease with us. And
Everybody got a cold? Perfect.
and then we'll do it slowly through chemical warfare.
So the first theory I have here is that everybody ate each other.
Cannibalism.
What?
Yeah. That tribe members could have ate them, and the reason why there's no bones is that they grind up their bones for medicinal reasons. And because they were known to do that already.
It's all about that marrow, baby.
It's the good stuff right there. Or
So the colonists cannibalized themselves.
no, I'm saying the natives cannibalized or ate. Yeah, they ate the colonists. The natives ate the colonists. That's
okay.
one of the theories of that. The other is that they did eat themselves due to hunger or
Well, I mean, there was lack of supplies, so
Yeah,
that's why
so-
John White was like, "All right, I'm going to head back to England, get some more supplies. I'll be back in a couple months." And they're like, "Well, gosh, it's kind of been a while."
So they think
That-
like some kind of plagues could have like messed with their brains a little bit, caused them to have some kind of a zombie type of virus even, and they're eating everybody.
It's like Seinfeld when he sees who's he look at? Looks like a turkey. Kramer looks like a turkey.
Oh, that's because he's like
The mailman.
That's Newman. So that's because Kramer goes up on the roof and he's not using to tan.
Right,
he's
he uses
using butter, and he
Yeah.
cooked himself too long, so it smells like butter.
And Newman's like,
Newman's. I get it. I'm a fat guy. I know. Like, you smell that butter. You're hungry.
So they pulled a Newman. All
Yeah,
right,
so
got
that
it.
was-
Got it.
so that's one of the theories. The other one is the word Croatoan itself has a mysterious
So there's the name of the
power.
island and the name of the tribe.
Yes, Croatoa, Croatoan. So Croatoan itself has a mysterious power behind the word. So
Should we not be saying this as much then?
Croton.
Oh, what did
Don't
you just
say-
release? Cannibalism.
So, so that neighboring island to Roanoke, Croatoa, where
Uh-huh.
they wrote the word Croatoan, that word has been wrote on other mysterious disappearances.
Oh.
So, in 1888, a famous stagecoach robber named Black Bart.
So this is 300 years
Yeah.
after the missing
So,
colonist.
He was a prisoner who was getting released from his cell, and in his cell, he wrote the word Croatoan in there.
Black Bart.
Yeah. After his release, he was never seen or heard of again.
Isn't that Ralphie's nemesis in Christmas Story?
I have no
Yeah.
idea.
I'll
What?
get you, Black Bart.
Could be. Well, maybe because he's a stagecoach robber and he's playing like a
Uh-huh,
sheriff.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I know my Christmas Story movies.
Yeah, you know.
I know my men in green tights.
All right, so there was this other horror author. His name was Ambrose.
Horror?
Horror.
Horror.
Make sure
See, I'm not
This is
the one that says it
horror.
wrong.
You know this horror author. Yeah, this horror author,
I know the feels.
Ambrose Bierce.
Okay.
He carved it into his bedpost before vanishing in Mexico in 1913.
Oh, I think we have another episode coming up.
So, I've never heard of this guy before, but I guess he's a famous author, and yeah, I guess he disappeared in Mexico. And when they checked on him or where he was sleeping, he carved that into his
Let's
bedpost.
write this down as a note for a future episode.
And then there was a ghost ship, the Carol A. Deering. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Didn't we talk about
yes,
this? on
Bermuda
Bermuda
Triangle.
Yes, exactly. So you have heard of this.
Yeah.
So of all of our listeners.
So the very last word in the logbook was Croatoan.
That's crazy. Did you-
And
did you
and
get-
that ship, guess where that ship came aground?
North Carolina?
It's a little island called Cape Hatteras.
Cape Hatteras.
Which was
formerly
just-
known as?
It's this is
Croatoa.
near Croatoa.
Or near it. Yeah, it's not far from the island, but it's right by there.
This is we got to talk about the Bermuda Triangle again.
And then there's another famous person that you've heard of, Amelia Earhart.
Yes, yes.
And where did she crash land?
I don't know.
Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, yes,
No,
yes.
no, we don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We don't know. But one of the words in the last
Tattooed on her neck was...
one of the last words scribbled in her journal before her disappearance was Croatoan
Huh.
in 1937.
1937. That's
Yeah.
an interesting year that we'll talk about.
And
a little
then
bit. Was
another famous
the other one?
Yes.
Okay.
The other famous person, Edgar Allan Poe. And before his disappearance on a trip to Pennsylvania, he was found barely conscious in the gutters of Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes.
And on his deathbed, he was like just mumbling nonsense and just saying random stuff. And
Which they took and put into the Echo Box.
Yep. But the one word that
Yep.
stood out from that was that really just made everybody wonder what was the word Croatoan.
Interesting.
So those were all just some words based around the word Croatoan itself that is kind of mysterious.
This all
Okay.
makes sense now. I can't remember what season. I think it was Murder House of American Horror Story.
It was not Murder House. It was the Roanoke.
Oh, was it the Roanoke?
Yeah, it was called Roanoke.
It was. It makes sense because they kept saying Croatoan throughout the whole damn
Yes.
season.
Yes.
That makes sense now.
So
makes sense.
that was that whole theory of the word Croton being mysterious.
So it's got some magical properties. If you write crow, see, we're just saying it.
We got to carve it in the table.
We got to
here,
write it down and
yeah.
carve it into the table.
This will probably be the last episode.
Let's carve Croton into the table. And,
No one's gonna hear
if
from us
you
again.
don't hear, so that'd be a great way to, like, if we're done doing the
Yeah,
podcast, it's just like, okay, it's been 10 years. Let's stop the podcast. We'll carve Croton on the
There's
table.
too many curves. I can't do it.
And then you won't hear from us ever
They're all
again.
diamond shaped now.
So if we go off the air, look for the table that says Croton.
And then look for the clues. All right, the next one is witchcraft. Witchcraft is a theory that colonists and the natives were accusing each other of witchcraft, killing each other in the process, and calling each other names and killing each other over it.
Yeah.
The natives could have thought that the white man's diseases were due to devils and demons,
Okay.
and thought that that's a good reason to kill them.
Yeah, they thought God was cursing them with diseases.
So
And
kill the bearers of disease.
And then the Europeans were like, oh, they're dying from diseases because God wants them there to be gone. They're in our way, basically.
Yeah. So
Different perspectives. Oh my word!
perspectives.
Thank you for the same thing.
Yes, exactly.
They're like, oh, God's punishing us, and the colonists are like, hey, God's helping us.
Right.
Best white people.
So another one. I mean, this kind of ties with witchcraft, but it's different. It's a magic. They think it's some type of a magic.
Like
Fireball.
Tinkerbell fairy dust magic?
Lightning bolt. Lightning bolt.
Native magic.
No, this is
So the natives
Tinkerbell
believe-
fairy dust magic.
Kinda, I guess. So they believe in a higher spiritual beings. One of them being an elemental that takes on the form of a reptile, and this reptile would attach itself to humans and cause them to take on demonic traits, which would make them fight each other and kill each other eventually. So that was one of their ideas.
I don't know about you, but this sounds like the most feasible explanation.
Yeah, right.
It was a
The
lizard.
natives also kind of talk about there was things happening at the time of the arrival already. So like there were a lot of birds dying at the time and other random animals just getting killed off and dying during that time as well. So they talked about that could have caused that magic being like a saying that something bad's coming. They also believe that another type of spirit there that when angered will absorb the offenders into the woods, so the colonists could possibly still be there.
That sounds like a movie.
Part of the shrubbery. But so that was the magic part of their theory. Another theory was that the politics of war and all that had to do with this. So with England and Spain being at war during the time, some people could have already known that this was going to happen before the colonists had even gone there. Also, because of the colonists where they landed, and there were already Spaniards stationed in Florida at the time. So with those Spaniards being there and them being at war and knowing that there are some England people up there, they could have traveled up north, wiped them out just as a possible threat.
Okay.
Yes. Because we all know, we've talked about this before, I believe, St. Augustine, Florida is the oldest city in the U.S.
Yes, you did.
So the Spanish settled in the U.S.
They were already there.
For the
they had
Europeans.
ships. They had
Yep.
all the artillery, everything there. So if they knew and heard about the colonists up there, they're like, hey, let's wipe them out. So that could have been a thing. There's an anthropologist named Lee Miller who she thinks the colonists were intentionally stranded. Walter Raleigh could have been sabotaged by Francis Walsingham, who was the Secretary of State under Queen Elizabeth, because Raleigh would have been granted royal patent for all the land he would settle, with or without the settlers surviving. But this guy didn't like that idea, sabotaged the whole thing, left him stranded on purpose, and by doing so did not keep records of this. So that way, the secrets of all this were actually hidden from the crown.
Yeah, I heard that too, where Raleigh didn't want this to come out that his colony went missing. That's why he didn't send anyone looking for him, because he didn't want it to go
It would
in
all
the
come
books
back
that he
to
was
him.
a failure, and it would look bad on him.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
and he could have been like, I don't want this guy getting all this land.
Yeah,
And so so it could have been a double crossing of some kind. That's kind of that whole idea that this anthropologist believes. Another theory is that they got bored of waiting and they decided to try to leave.
Again, they're low on supplies.
They're low on supplies. That they could have tried moving further away from the ocean, going more inland and going that route, and died in the process. Not the whole Dare Stones. That whole thing kind of writes out about his daughter, kind of telling about what's been happening.
John White's daughter.
Yeah,
The Dare Stones, we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah,
And
so
So you're talking about going inland, also maybe even going to England, going back to England.
not going back to England because they did not have enough. There wasn't a ship that could hold all the people, and they didn't have supplies. So there's no possible way that they could have done that. So their easiest route would be to make trips back and forth to the mainland or to maybe Croatoa or somewhere else. And the other last one that I have is that they were absorbed by the native tribes. And by absorbed, because they had a good relationship already with the natives, they could have moved over to the Croatoan Islands and became part of the tribe, where they could have married into them and had sex.
What?
Relations.
Babies and
Is
sex.
that how procreation works?
And I did see that they
Explains
did
Dratus.
they tried to do some DNA tests.
Yeah, for like 10 years. They were, this was in the In Search Of documentary. They had, I can't remember the lady's name. They had this lady that specialized in like DNA testing.
Right.
And
This is like her main job for the last 10 years.
yeah. So they had people that had the same surname as some of the colonists. Mm-hmm. And they would volunteer
Like
their DNA.
brown, white.
Yes.
So some of the common ones.
So they would look through the DNA to find. First off, they would try to track the father's DNA, and they would try to track it back to see if they had Native American DNA in their system, as well as European DNA, where they wanted the dominant DNA to be European, showing that the colonists and the Croatoans got together and made the babies.
And they did find that some of the people in that area, they had both DNA strands of Native and of European.
There were also reports soon after that disappearance of them of European-made goods in the areas of where the natives, in that whole inland area of where the native tribes were. I don't know who reported this.
Some guy.
And then in 1607, there was reports of 4 clothed men, which the natives weren't clothed at the time, so it would have been strange to see clothed men living with the Iroquois tribe, which were an inland tribe. So when people arrived and seen that, that was kind of strange that there was already people there wearing clothes, hiding their shame.
I'm so sorry.
And then there was other reports of stone-made houses in other tribes, which these tribes were not known to add stones to their housing. So that was something that was done in Europe, which was strange, and for them to be doing so.
So they introduced them like, hey, you know what's stronger than these sticks?
And mud?
These rocks.
And then there were some other things that were also found inland, like there was like a ring that was known to be European, a slate and a pencil, which was known to be used by the colonists, and even a piece from a sword that was also found, which is a certain type of sword, which is
So it was
only
a
used.
European raper.
Reaper. No, raper.
Raper.
Reaper.
Rapier.
Not saying that
Rapier.
it didn't
Rapier.
happen, but
Rapier. This was all found. Where was this found?
I can't remember exactly.
Hatteras Island.
Okay, yes, you're right. And the reason that was found there was because of what they thought them moving away from that island.
So Hurricane Emily came through and actually uncovered some Native American pottery on Hatteras Island, and this is where they found the ring.
Yes.
It was supposedly a 14-karat gold ring, which they said is not something that the colonists would have easily parted with and traded to the natives. So
Came with a hand.
Yeah, most likely.
speaking of precious metals, in this episode, they had found some copper.
Yes.
And they were able to dig up and kind of search back where did this copper originate from, because the way it's made, and there's different chemicals. And they did find it was of European creation.
Yeah, because that's what they were trading them copper, cheaply made copper for their gold.
Yeah. So they were bringing their copper from Europe that wasn't pure copper, where the copper that the natives used was pure copper all the way through. That Scott Dawson guy, he's the founder of the Croatoan Archaeological Society. Him and some English guy named Mark, who's also an archaeologist, have been excavating Hatteras Island since 2009.
Wow.
They've found a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they have. I've seen
Like, all the stuff that you just mentioned, really. The stone and the lead pencil.
Tons of different things that match, like some pottery with the resin that matches some things from other islands too. That were, I can't remember everything else that came along with that.
So you mentioned the rapier handle, which again was something from that time period that they wouldn't have traded.
Yeah.
There's the Nuremberg tokens.
Oh, I don't remember getting those.
So they talked about this on the Expedition Unknown episode with Josh Gates.
Okay, I did watch that one. But,
So and that was at the very beginning. I was walking through the museum. So there's 3 Nuremberg tokens, and these are actually German coins that were found in the Hatteras Island excavations. There was in some of the shows they found beads.
Yes, the beads.
And like
and that
copper
bead was
buttons.
tiny.
Yeah.
How they found that when they were digging in that site, and
Yeah,
so
they
the
found
site,
it, and you see it like in Josh Gates' hand. It's tiny.
it's like a pinhead.
Yeah.
But they were trying to find. They were digging through what they believed was a garbage pile,
Okay.
and that's what they were trying to get through and see all the
So
things.
the
that were
defective
tossed.
bead got it.
Yeah, so
The
that's
runt
what they're
bead.
doing. That's what they're excavating. Is basically like they say the tribe lived up on this hill, and they just throw the garbage off the back of the hill, and so that's what they're basically digging up is these old garbage piles of the Native Americans, and they find, evidence of what they ate. They found bones of not just fish because they were good fishermen, but they also found bones of deer and stuff that were on the island, and they were saying that it's easier to hunt with guns, so it's possible that one, they either killed the natives or the colonists and took their guns, or that the colonist was there with them.
Another theory also was that they could have been conquered and sold as slaves, and sold off to other tribes, and just kind of died off that way. Another thing was that in 1607 there was a guy, William Strachey, and he had said that Chief Powhatan, I think that was Pocahontas' dad.
Yeah, that's right.
He-
Tiger lilies. Right?
He told John Smith that his tribe were the ones that killed the colonists for aligning with a rival tribe of theirs. So when they aligned with that tribe, that made them their enemies. So when they fought them, they killed the colonists as well. So
Okay.
he said he confessed to that, but that also was never in any writing of any kind. So that's it's been debatable. Because that was just hearsay.
Yeah, it's just they think it might have been someone trying to the tribe guy that said it. I can't think of chief. Oh my god,
Chief Powhatan.
the chief was taking credit for it because one, he didn't want more colonists to come. He thought it would be a way to scare them off and keep them from coming over.
Just being like, yeah, I did it, and I'll do it again.
Yep, pretty much. So yeah, those are a lot of the theories. Some other stuff that they found more recent, in 2011 or 2013, somewhere in there. So they have the original map that John White
Oh,
drew.
yes. And then they found the patches.
They found some patches. They've known about the patches for a while, but finally, in 2013 or whenever it was, they decided that they were actually going to put this in a shadow box and have light come up through behind it. And when they did this, they found underneath one of the patches there was a symbol for a fort.
The giant, it's like a big cross.
Yeah.
And it looks like a fat cross, big old fat cross.
Yeah. So, and this happened to be 50 miles into the mainland, up the little canal there, right on the land. And they have now designated this as Site X. And they do stuff there.
So this whole patch, with what's his name? What's this guy's name
John
again?
White.
John White. With him being a map maker and an artist, he's like, that's what they
Chartographer.
do. Yeah, they have to change the map sometimes because there's corrections. They can't really erase it, so they
Yeah.
put these patches on top. That X where they say there was a fort, that could have been where a fort would have been built. Like that,
Yeah.
they could have planned for that with the first set of settlers. But
That
then,
or the first settlers could have been there, and they evacuated from there because of the
right
wars
before
that
they
was going
built it.
on.
Yeah, before they built it, because there's no remains there.
Hmm.
That was one of the things. Like they're trying to find a fort there, and they haven't found a fort yet. But I think that's why the patch was made, was because that was an idea and it was abandoned.
Interesting.
That's my thoughts. That's my opinion.
It's possible, yeah. There's no way of really knowing. I mean, they're working on it. People are trying to figure it out. This is still an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Like the newest documentary that this Mark and Scott guy came out with this year, actually in May.
May, yeah.
This covers a 2-week excavation they did in December. So this is recent stuff.
December 2021.
Yeah.
They did it. Okay.
Yep. They did an excavation. They had 2 weeks to dig. I don't know why they only had 2 weeks, but they did. It could have been because it's December and it's somehow not snowing there in North Carolina. I don't know the weather there. I've never been.
Tropical.
So they found a bunch of stuff in this, and they talk about the Nuremberg token, I think, a little bit. How one of them, there was actually one found on Roanoke Island as well. So there's like 3 of them in this museum that they found there on Hatteras, and then there's one that they found on Roanoke Island. Then, like I said, these are German tokens, so it's not like the Native Americans, made these.
I mean, would it be strange? Would it be strange if Germans and English were commingling at the time?
No, they might have traded or something, but
Like
they're basically saying
like
that
somebody knowing that they're going to go to this island that there's natives could have brought been like, hey, I got some shiny coins I could trade for
Right.
for
right.
some.
So basically,
native stuff.
the point is like these tokens aren't Native American tokens,
Right, yeah, or
so
English.
it's just sign that there was some sort of Europeans there. There was the most recent thing they found in this documentary towards the end was that Tudor Rose. You remember that?
That word is very familiar. I can't picture what it is in my head though.
So it was they had this little brass rose-looking thing, and the Mark guy, the archaeologist, took a picture of it and sent it to his friend back in England, and they studied the picture and determined that it was a Tudor rose. And basically, the Tudor rose is the Tudors were royal line there in England. They actually, I think, like the William or like Henry VIII or something. I don't know my English history that well, but they ruled in England. And Queen Elizabeth.
Oh right, the Tudors. Yeah, because
Yeah,
that
the
was
Tudors.
Yeah.
So Queen Elizabeth actually had the last living Tudor, I believe, executed, and so, but they determined by the shape of this rose that there was like one hole in it off to the side, and it looks like it was turned into like some kind of fastener or a buckle or something. And he said because this particular Tudor rose had a big hole right in the middle, that he was able to easily date it between that particular rose was made between 1500 and 1550, so before the colonists would arrive. So after 1550, they started filling in that hole, and it was just a solid piece. And they believed that this belonged to one of the colonists. One, because of the time frame that they said it was made, but two, Queen Elizabeth died in 1602, and they stopped basically wearing or making Tudor roses after that. But they were saying in this documentary that Europeans wouldn't be caught dead wearing a Tudor rose.
Because you get killed.
Yeah. So they found this recently. This is within the last year. They found this little rose.
That was on Hatteras Island, right?
That was on Hatteras Island. Yes.
So I think they could have moved over there.
It's very possible. There was, so you did mention the Dare Stones, and you mentioned Amelia Earhart missing in 1937.
Right.
So 1937, this dude named Lewis Hammond was on vacation from California, and he was driving with his wife and decided he needed to pull over and stretch his legs, and he just happened to be about 50 miles west of Roanoke Island, and guess what he found?
What?
A 21-pound stone with some engravings on it. And he didn't know what it was, so he put it in the trunk of his car and left it for 3 months. Because that's what you do. You find a stone. He said it was just sticking out of the ground. It kind of looked like a headstone, but he wasn't sure. So, I often
Do you know how big it was?
21 pounds. Is all
Like
I know.
that.
It's like this big. It's as big as your head. Big one, small one, some as big as your head. I have no idea. It's just 21 pounds of like I can't remember. Do you remember kind of stone
Like that.
Like that?
And like you said, it was sticking out, so we thought it was like a tombstone. So
Yeah.
kind of gives
So I
you,
thought it was a tombstone.
visually it gives me an idea.
20-pound rock engraved. Okay, so it doesn't say what kind of stone it is. So basically, so he was driving around in Georgia. He ended up saying Emory University, and he went in and said, "Hey, I have this thing. I don't know what it is. I want $1,000 for it." And so they paid him $1,000, and then he was never seen from or heard from again. He also disappeared. He probably wrote Croatoan somewhere.
That's what happened.
That was his license plate.
So they had vanity plates in 37. It's possible. So they have this stone, and they call it the Dare Stone because they put some flower stuff on it to make it more legible. And on one side of it, it says, Ananias Dare and Virginia Dare went hence unto heaven 1591. And then it says, if any Englishman
So 4
sees
years
this,
after they colonized.
yeah. So, and this is a year after they found the colony missing.
Yeah. Okay.
So
okay.
1591 is apparently when this stone was engraved. And
Just real quick, time history. 1587, they landed.
yes,
1590, roughly, John White comes back from England,
and
this stone says 1591.
this stone says 1591.
They passed,
Yeah,
and this is Virginia Dare, the granddaughter of John White, and her mom.
yeah. This is
John
Ananias
White's
Dare, which would have been John White's
daughter.
son-in-law.
That's his.
Ananias Dare was the
it's
son-in-law.
a man's name. Okay.
Yeah, and then Virginia Dare. So it says Ananias Dare and Virginia went hence unto heaven 1591.
Okay.
And then it says if any Englishman finds this, give it to John White. That's on one side. So on the back side, it's the interpretation. I mean, you can see this.
Which he never got though.
Yeah. Obviously, he never got it. So on this website, it's kind of hard to tell what it says. It's still up for interpretation.
Old
but-
English.
Yeah. So the rough translation, what they think it says, is that Father, soon after you left for England, we came here. There was
So
only
this is maybe John White's daughter writing this.
so yeah. So they did find at the end of this, all of this stuff written on there. There was an EWD, which they think stood for Elizabeth White Dare, which is his daughter's name. So it was just initials. Her name wasn't written out, so this is all speculation, going off of the fact that Ananias and Virginia
if
were
he
written
would
on the
have
front.
seen it, he
Yeah.
would have recognized.
So-
that's her initials.
Right.
My daughter's initials.
His daughter's initials, and
Yeah.
given on the front, it says Ananias and Virginia went to heaven. They just there's very good evidence that Elizabeth wrote this.
Okay.
So they think it says something along the lines of, Father, soon after you left for England, we came here. There was only misery and war for 2 years, and more than half of us died in these 2 years, mostly from sickness. A native with a ship came to us, and over a small period of time, the enemy became frightened of revenge and ran away. That's some of the things, or one of the things I think this stone says. There is, they haven't been able to verify that this stone is legit.
They said one they've proved because there's two stones.
There were several. There was like 8.
Out of all of them, I think one of them is legit. That they've said is legit, or that they're still wondering. The others,
That would be the main stone.
Yeah, and
the main Dare stone.
the other ones are proved to be hoax.
Yeah. So people were making up because they were like, "Oh, hey, look, we found this. We want money."
We found some too.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing is, like, when Lewis Hanman took them back to the spot where he found it, he couldn't find the exact spot, so they weren't able to actually like kind of do a proper search and see if there was anything else around. And because he picked it up and took it with him and had it for like 3 months, supposedly they can't 100% authenticate that this was actually found, 50 miles west.
Okay.
It's very convenient. I don't know. So that's another thing. They think, it goes on. I think it goes on to say that basically, like, there were 24 of them left, and that the natives did attack and killed all but 7 of them. And she was one of the survivors at that point. So it's a big old mystery still. If you talk to that Mark and Scott guy that's there doing their archaeological digs on Hatteras Island, they're 100% convinced. Actually, they're not 100%. The Scott guy in the documentary sounds like he's 100% convinced. Mark basically says, we have found a lot of stuff. It is possible that the stuff we found could have been left and found by the natives, and they just took it back with them, or the colonists gave it to the natives for safekeeping. They just don't know for sure. They basically, he says that that it is, they have not found anything to 100% guarantee that this is what happened, that they went to Croatoan Island.
Do you know what happened to John White?
No.
So he died in 1593.
Soon after.
Yeah. So yeah, he never got this stone, obviously, if it was really written by Elizabeth for him. And so if you think about, like, why did he not go search? So, again, they colonized or settled in 1587. He left to England, came back around 1590. He tried going to Croatoa Island, couldn't make it because of the storm, went back to England. And, he might have been trying to get things ready to prepare to go on a voyage back out there. He just never made it because I don't know what happened.
Still at war with Spain?
Still at war with Spain. Maybe he got sick and couldn't do much. So, he only died a few years later.
Yeah, he probably got sick. Plus, he probably already got that one pass to go that last time and failed. Like, no, you can't do it again. We need this ship.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
So what do you guys think happened? Let's hear your thoughts. Oh. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, to the day of his death, John White did believe that they did go to Croatoa Island and they just stayed with them, just colonized. I wouldn't say colonized, but stayed with them and just lived amongst them. That's what he kind of believed.
That's his thoughts. What are your thoughts?
And I was about to say, I kind of think the same thing. Thinking that they wrote Croatoa on a tree and on a post, they wrote the letter CRO. I think probably that's what they did too. It's just for them to survive. Obviously, they were low on supplies. That's why he went back to England, and so I think they just said, "Hey, our best maybe bet at this point is to maybe just go down to Croatoa Island and hang out there and see if we can kind of help. They can teach us how to live along what's it called."
On the land.
Live on the land and to kind of just so we can survive until he comes back. He'll see we were there. He'll come get us and bring us back, or maybe that's what their thought process was. But they ended up just staying there. What happened? It's very surprising that this Dare Stone, if it really was written by Elizabeth, as she wrote, her husband and daughter died. Did they die at the same time? Like, what really happened? Did they both? Or just happen? Maybe it was just within the same year they died, and then she wrote this, or did they die on the same day? If they died on the same day, what would cause them to die on the same day? So that kind of is the mystery going through my brain right now. But I think they went to Croatoa Island.
How about you?
Yep.
Same?
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, to me, it kind of makes the most sense, because if they stayed there and died of disease or cannibalism, why are there no bones? Why were the houses taken down? So I.
Oh right, yeah.
They honestly. They didn't stay there. Obviously, they didn't stay there. So I kind of rule out the disease. I mean, it is possible that they did go somewhere else and die of disease, according to the stone. I don't know for sure. But to me, it kind of makes the most sense.
Right.
That they went to Croatoan Island because the Croatoans were friendly. The Croatoans actually gave them corn, but they could only give them so much because they couldn't, give them. We can't give you all of our crops because we need to eat too. So it would only make sense that, like, okay, these people are friendly. They're giving us food. Maybe, just maybe, they'll let us live with them.
Yeah.
And
back then, corn wasn't, full of steroids, so they were much smaller corn. They couldn't
Yes.
give them all their corn.
So yeah, I think that they did try to go to Croatoa, but I do think from that point that there was probably a lot of things that happened. I do think that they probably left there and went to other places. My thought was that they were probably going to just take stepping stones and leave notes along the way, kind of try different things. But when they got to the first stop, I think that's when everything went bad.
Well, also, the place where they wrote CRO in the tree was up north.
Yeah, that was up north. It was north of where the settlement was.
And the Croatoa Island was south, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So I'm even now wondering if they kind of split up. Like, hey, you guys go north, we'll go south.
And that was one of the theories, too.
Okay.
So it's possible that they split, too.
I mean, there could have been if there were kind of like a war going on within themselves and fighting amongst themselves, and other people had different ideas. Yeah, that could have been an idea. But
or if they say, hey, we go to Croatoa Island, I don't know if they'll take all 100 of us, but maybe they'll take like 50 of us, and maybe another 50 try going somewhere else.
But I do think from there, some of them went more to the mainland and kind of. I do think that some of them got sold off. I do think that the whole slave trade or even marrying into other tribes. I think that's what happened from Croatoa. I do think they went to Croatoa and from there dismembered.
That's why it's the longest reigning mystery.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you or anyone you know has any information regarding the missing colonists of Roanoke Island, please email us at evp.pod@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on social media on Instagram and Facebook, evp.pod.
Yeah, when we post this episode, I'd like to know if you guys have watched anything about it and if you have any theories from what you've seen or heard. I'd like to hear people's theories as well, not just ours.
All right, should we call that an episode?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, Ghost, you don't play that.
Peace out, butterflies.
We're men in tights. We rob from the rich and give to the poor. That's right.
I totally thought you were going to go with Croatoan.
Croatoan.
This is the EVP Podcast.